So the problem that we're looking at today is looking at taking 1/4 of 40 because we're trying to figure out if there were 40 cookies, so I'll add cookies on the end there. If there were 40 cookies and 1/4 of those cookies were taken, how many cookies is that? Now, when we look at something like this, first off, it's it's important to know that what you're actually doing here is you're taking 1/4 of 40, which is the same as taking 1/4 times 40. So you're actually multiplying a fraction by a whole number here. Now, when you are doing that, the thing that I think is the most important to look at is our denominator, because basically what we're doing is we're splitting our amount of objects, in this case cookies, into four different groups. Now, to do that, I'm going to make an array. And because we're looking at the number 40, I know I'm splitting it into four different groups. 40 is divisible by 4 because we could do 4 times 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make four groups of 10, just dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, each one of these rows here in our array represents a fourth of the entire picture. And we could even say these are each cookies. So each one of these rows represents 1/4. So for instance, this row here would represent a fourth of all of the cookies. Now, because we started out with 40 cookies, we're splitting 40 cookies into four different groups. That tells me that there must have been 10 cookies stolen. 10 cookies would be 1/4. So 1/4 of 40 would be 10. Now, one quick way that we often do this, and I'll show you the quick way I think about it. If I see 1/4 of 40, what I always do is I just take 40 divided by 4. So 40 divided by 4, dividing by that denominator, which would give me 10. And then I notice, well, I only have one group of 10. So it's just 10. Now, if I were looking at a problem that looked like 3/4 of 40, basically do it the same way. You think, well, if I split 40 into four groups, each of those groups are going to have 10. But if I'm looking at three groups, I'm just going to do 10 times 3, which is 30. So if I'm looking at 3/4 of 40, then that's just 30. That's three of those groups of 10. Or here, we can look at here, that would be like these three rows. So that'd be 10, 20 would be 2/4, 3/4 would be 30. Now, that works anytime that we're multiplying a fraction by a whole number, assuming that the number that we're dividing up is divisible by our whole number. It gets a little bit harder if it's not divisible by our whole number. But this is a really basic way of how we can multiply a fraction by a whole number.